Hi, I'm Dr. John Douillard, and I want to talk to you today about how to stop a cold in its tracks. You know, we are constantly being exposed to viruses and bacteria and germs, and we can wash our hands and maintain good hygiene, but more importantly, it's our susceptibility that keeps us from getting sick. The first level of susceptibility is when we get stressed out, run down, and exhausted. That causes us to produce stress-fighting hormones, which are immune compromising. The chemistry of stress is very acidic. Our lymphatic system, particularly our cervical lymph, which drains the respiratory tract, becomes congested. And when the lymphatic system is congested, the immune system is literally stuck in traffic and can't respond to a bacteria or a virus as quickly as it should. So that's the first level of susceptibility, is not to let ourselves get run down or exhausted. Secondly, when the sinuses get dried out because the lymph can't drain the way it could, we begin to get kind of a scratchy throat. Our respiratory tract is lined with finger-like epithelium, skin with little projections that sweep toxins and villi through the respiratory tract so they can be processed into the lymphatic system and drained out of the body as quickly as possible. If they dry out, then we will get a scratchy, sore throat. And that's the second level of susceptibility of the common cold. And the third level of susceptibility is when those respiratory mucosa, after being dried out because the lymph isn't draining well, or we're in a very dry environment, like in the winter with dry heat blowing on us, and the winter causes a very significant amount of dryness in the air. The rain even dries out as snow. The environment is extremely dry, and the respiratory tract dries out and produces a significant amount of respiratory mucus, and that can be produced in an excessive manner that causes the villi, the little cilia in your respiratory tract, to become congested. The bacteria and viruses are opportunistic. They breed in this mucus and they find safe haven in this mucus and they cause an infection. So we don't actually get infected until after the lymph system has been compromised because of stress and becoming run down. The respiratory tract has become dried out and irritated, and then the mucus produces reactive mucus, and then we become vulnerable to the infection. So if we treat the body with antibiotics at that point in time, it can be very, very effective, but we can treat the body much earlier to prevent the infection from taking place. Now, if you do get infected, then please go to your doctor, get checked out, make sure you're not in harm's way. If you need antibiotics, then take them. They save lives. But more importantly is what we can do for our family and for ourselves to treat the first three levels of susceptibility before the infection takes place. Now, the fourth level of susceptibility is when we have chronic dryness that causes post-nasal drip. The post-nasal drip is a thin layer of mucus that drips down the back of our throat and can irritate the bronchioles, causing a dry cough, or it can become excessive and cause an infection in the bronchioles or in the lower lungs and cause a more serious infection. And that's the fourth level of susceptibility, and that's something that we have to protect ourselves against. Now, years ago, I would have to use many, many different herbs to treat all those different levels of susceptibility. But a few years back, I designed a formula called Cold Cough, which has 3 Ayurvedic herbs that do an amazing job in stopping a cold in its tracks. How does it do that? Well, there's one of the herbs is called Trikatu. It's a series of 3 peppers: ginger, black pepper, and long pepper, and they decongest the upper respiratory tract. They thin the mucus so the mucus can flow out of the sinuses into the digestive system, into the lymph in a more efficient manner. It also increases the circulation of the respiratory tract so those cells can turn over and rejuvenate themselves. The second herb is an herb called Sitopalati. It's a very ancient Ayurvedic formula for the respiratory tract, traditionally used for thousands of years for asthma and breathing difficulties. And what this formula does is it actually opens up the airways, it heals the respiratory tract, and it actually heals the mucosa of the lower lobes of the lungs as well as the sinuses. So this is a great addition to this formula. And then the last herb is called turmeric, and turmeric is well studied for its boosting of the immune system. It actually heals the cilia of the respiratory tract. It actually increases bile flow, which is a big immune protector in our intestinal tract. It actually decreases inflammation, much like vitamin D does, and protects our immune system. It also is a great antiviral agent, so it actually protects our cells, and it heals and repairs respiratory mucosa and thins the mucus. So when you put all three of those together, we have the turmeric and the trichotillue to thin the mucus, and the turmeric to heal the respiratory tract. And the turmeric is also a great lymphatic mover to get the cervical lymph to begin to drain, as well as the trichotillue, which stimulates circulation to get the lymph to drain as well. And of course, the cittopelade to actually really go in there and soothe and heal the respiratory mucosa. Three amazing herbs all in one formula. You take 2 of those capsules every 2 hours at the first sign of a cold, and you can usually turn a cold back in its tracks. It's just an amazing combination of herbs that works incredibly well. In addition to that, I like to do 2 other things. One is get a thermos, fill it with hot water, and sip it every 5 or 10 minutes, as much as you can during those first couple of hours of that respiratory irritation and sore throat, and just sip as much plain hot water as you possibly can. Boil the water, put it in a thermos, 2 or 3 sips every 5 to 10 minutes for 3 days if you need it that long. But usually best to stay in these routines for the full 3 days and turn this cold around once and for all. And the very last thing I want to tell you about is a technique called ear oil. And you can go to the health food store and buy an ear oil called garlic mullein, which is probably the best one you can buy. I also, in the article associated with this video, I tell you how to make your own simple, takes about 10 minutes to make your own garlic ear oil. Extremely simple. You take the ear oil and you warm it up just above body temperature. You put it in both ears, 2 or 3 times a day to actually help increase cervical lymphatic drainage. That activates your immune system, and your lymph system starts to become engaged, comes back online, and it supports an incredible immune response. So between the ear oil, the sipping of the hot water, and taking the cold cough every 2 hours, 2 capsules every 2 hours for these 3 days, can almost always turn a cold around in its tracks. Please read the article associated with this video. I go step by step through this process. I give you some information, some of the research done on some of these herbs, and also how to do the hot water, and also how to make your own ear oil. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.